Poaching has been an illegal practice for hundreds of years, but it was during the late Middle Ages that poaching became a punishable offence. During this time, the right to hunt was limited to landowners and royalty. In the 1900s, the new European colonial states enacted preservation laws that would stop the majority of Africans from hunting. This meant that most forms, including the hunting of food, were officially deemed as poaching. However, this was the time where commercial poaching started to become prevalent and a threat to animal populations. After independence was gained in the 1950s and 60s, most African countries retained these laws, but poaching for food continued, as well as the poaching for commercial gain. Those hunting for food present a threat to animal populations, but not on the same level as those who did so for international markets. In the early 2000s, the Asian demand for ivory began to rise steeply, and poaching in Africa rose to crisis levels. The impact of poaching isn't limited to the endangerment and extinction of animals being hunted. Earth's ecosystems are sensitive. The eradication of one species can lead to the endangerment of another. Smaller communities who rely on tourism will quickly find themselves without anything to show. But probably the least talked about impact that poaching can have is on the health of humanity across the globe. Illegal poaching has been linked to several recent diseases that have heavily impacted the quality of life across regions far beyond the point of the initial hunt. For example, the outbreak of SARS in Hong Kong has been traced to the human contact and consumption of poached meat available on the black wildlife markets. Ebola, one of the world's most horrific diseases, has had outbreaks in Africa directly linked to the poaching and consumption of primates. And bird flu, monkeypox, and heartwater disease are examples of diseases directly facilitated by the illegal wildlife trade. According to the US Center for Disease Control, 75% of diseases are zoonotic and reach humans through animals. And given that illegal smugglers won't exactly be concerned about effectively monitoring and quarantining their international imports, this is an incredibly difficult problem to control. Government efforts to combat poaching is vastly under-resourced and ineffective, but in recent times there have been numerous local, community-based groups that have stood up and established themselves as national caretakers of the animal reserves. These organisations have had to ensure that their training and equipment is up to the task of keeping up to the speed with the forever evolving nature of those involved with the illegal trade. After the reactivation of Team Rainbow in 2015, one of these caretakers was recruited to bring her skills and expertise to assist in the fight against terrorism on a global scale. This operator was named Melusi.
True predator strikes out of necessity, not greed, and they protect what is theirs.
Thandiwe Ndlovu, codenamed Melusi, is a defending operator in Team Rainbow. Born in the small South African town of Louwsburg near the Ithala Game Reserve, Melusi spent many years exploring the rugged surrounding landscape with her friend Elna Gardiner. Initially brought together after finding out that both of their names essentially meant the same thing, beloved, they quickly discovered that they also had a shared passion for the animals of the game reserve. As they grew up, their sense of appreciation and responsibility for the animals only increased. They saw the devastation to the park's animal population as a result of the greed and cold indifference of the poachers. Every year the threat to the wildlife rose, and they knew that they had to take action, although they could only save so many with their limited resources, and the poachers and their victims were countless. The inhumane and senseless slaughter drove their determination, their focus, and their passion to concentrate solely on the lives they could save. Eventually, Elna went on to become an accomplished veterinarian, whereas Melusi chose the path of prevention and thus joined the South African National Defence Force. The role of the South African National Defence Force is border protection and preventing illegal immigration and drug smuggling. They also focus on serious crimes, such as attacks on farms, stock theft, prevention of trafficking drugs, weapons and ammunition, car hijackings, and taxi violence. Her aim was to broaden her skill set, but also to generate the funds she required to pay for field ranger training. This one-year course involves a number of different eco-training camps in South Africa and Botswana, which teaches its participants expert knowledge of the African flora and fauna, as well as professional safari guiding. Half of the training is spent as an intern in a lodge to gain profound, hands-on guide experience. She also learned about geology, astronomy, weather and climate, animal identification and behaviour, and conservation management. Eventually she was noticed by the 1 Parachute Battalion, the only full-time paratrooper unit of the South African Army. To give would-be members the endurance and fitness they would need for operations in the harsh African conditions, soldiers were put through a grueling regime of psychological and physical tests, including physical training 3 times a day, no walking in camp under any circumstances, 20-kilometre runs carrying tarpoles, dragging car tyres, carrying a 25 kg concrete slab everywhere the candidate goes, night runs with 25 kilos of equipment, 20-kilometre 75 kilo stretcher runs, digging trenches, and the carrying of artillery canisters over 10 kilometres, all while being timed. After the 6-month ordeal, the select few obtain their wings. But it doesn't stop here. Individuals are required to continue honing their skills in advanced driving, demolitions, tactics and patrolling, unarmed combat, survival skills, escape and evasion, trafficking, counterinsurgency operations, and ambush and anti-ambush techniques. But unfortunately, once active, her time with this unit was short-lived, when her battalion participated in the South African military assistance to the Central African Republic operation. Ambushed by the Seleka rebels, the unit suffered greatly, with 13 killed, 27 injured, and 1 missing in action. Melusi was one of the soldiers left badly wounded by the event, and lucky to have escaped with her life. Although the 1 Parachute Battalion would eventually receive battle honours for this operation a few years later, it's clear that this event has had a huge impact on her. Even today, she still refuses to speak on what happened, and remains forever changed and haunted by the incident. Still in close contact, Elna eventually reached out to Melusi, asking for her help in defending Louwsburg Park, the oldest and only state-run nature reserve in Africa. Home to Africa's Big 5 game, elephant, rhinoceros, Cape buffalo, lion and leopard, it was faced with a rapidly growing poacher threat. Melusi resigned from the military and began training local women in trafficking, interception and surveillance. Together, they became the driving force behind the Inkaba Task Force anti-poaching unit. Even after everything she had seen in the Defence Force, Melusi seemed to be more affected by what she witnessed on the reserve, and armed with her extensive training, she tackled this new enemy with a military-like precision. Setbacks, altercations, and tragedy only pushed her further, and this showed in the way that she trained the woman, and the new drone surveillance systems that she rolled out to assist in the fight. But the poachers were also evolving with the times, becoming more militarized. They were forever changing their tactics, and using more specialized equipment. This meant that Melusi had to be highly adaptive. She would wait, intercept, and prevent. In turn, she would become the poacher of poachers. This method was met with a number of different reactions. Even if she wasn't able to stop them herself, she would often slow them down enough to be intercepted by others, or even discourage the poachers from continuing altogether. Melusi is a warden. She watches, she defends, and she gets the job done. She is efficient, precise, and understands that greed remains one of humanity's greatest challenges. Melusi strongly believes that fighting the poachers isn't enough, but that in order to move forward in this fight, that there must be education and a shared responsibility within the community if the future is to ever really change. She is proud of the accomplishments that her team of women have managed to achieve, and she believes that they have truly made a difference in the lives of the animals they protect. She understands that the local economy needs help, but that this form of acquiring easy money isn't the way, and in the long term cannot be sustained. Melusi's drive and determination is of huge benefit to Rainbow. Her methods of focusing on the action of prevention through surveillance and putting an end to the incident before it can occur will always be the preferred method to picking up the pieces after the devastation. This one was a little different to the other operators I've covered up until now. Although Melusi came from a military background, the majority of the story focused on her love and the need to protect animals in the country she calls home. So instead I focused on this. This is actually a particular area of interest for me. the environment, and especially the animals. I mean, I'm no Greta, not by a long shot, but this is probably the reason my house looks like a petting zoo half the time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!